So in your notes, you want to put a heading that says characteristics. And now we're going to start building out the characteristics in order. So let's see. I see balloon number 1. And I'm going to go based on the order of balloons just so I don't lose track of what I'm doing here. Might as well go systematically. So first one is balloon number 1. And we should have a diameter of 375. And what's our tolerance there?
Plus or minus 375 pounds.
It just says 375. That's a 3-place decimal, so we got plus or minus 5. All right, so we have a couple different ways that we can do this in Calypso. We could come to size, standards, and diameter. And then we could double click on diameter. And we could come down here to feature 1 and click on the little button. And we could go find the hole that we want. So I clicked on circle 1, and you can see it highlights it on the graphics screen. So that is one of the 4 circles that we need to output. So yeah, it makes sense to do circle 1. So I'll say OK. And now for our nominal value, we'll fill in 375. And for our upper and lower tolerance, we'll put plus 5 thousandths and minus 5 thousandths, respectively. And then we'll say OK. Hey, look at that. It put in diameter number 1, and it colored it red. That says that this is actually out of tolerance. Doesn't mean it actually is out of tolerance, of course. I could have typed the wrong nominal or the wrong tolerance. But at least it's flagging you early. If you typed in the right information, hey, there's something wrong with this part. Now we have to do the same thing for the next next 3 circles, right? So we have circle 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all 4 of those circles have exactly the same output to them, right? So we can click on this, and we can right-click and copy. And then we can right-click and paste, and right-click and so let us paste again. Paste, and then right-click again and paste. And now we can come into diameter number 2, and we can change the feature from circle 1 to circle 2. Just pay attention to your nominal. That did update itself. It was 375 before, now it's 381. So we'll have to update that. But your upper and lower tolerance and the type of tolerance all stayed the same. So we'll go update diameter number 3 now as well. See, the nominal's 375 right now. When I change it to circle 3, it's updated itself to 381. So that's one thing to watch out for if you're copy pasting. But when you have features that are, there are multiple features of the same size, of the same tolerance, this can be a pretty quick way of doing it. All right, so balloon number 1, taken care of. Now I'll move on to balloon number 2. Looks like balloon number 2 is the 750 plus or minus 1. So first of all, which feature is that?
Circle 5.
Circle 5. All right. So I could copy paste one of these, or I could again come to the size, standards, and diameter. That's 6 of one, half dozen of another. For feature, we're going to grab circle 5. And then for our size, we'll go 750. And these first couple of labs had all plus or minus 5 tolerances, right? So we've been used to typing in plus or minus 5, and it's pretty likely some of you are going to type in plus or minus 5 here. What's the problem with that?
Drawing says it's plus or minus 1.
Yeah, the drawing, it's wrong. That's what's wrong with it. The drawing says it's plus or minus 1. And so I guess my point is, pay attention to the tolerance you're typing in. Plus or minus 5 is the default on the title block. But if the dimension itself says otherwise, you have to make sure your dimension report matches what the drawing says. And on the drawing, it says plus or minus 1 right there. Now another thing to look out for, you notice I just hit tab to get into the lower tolerance field here. You notice how it highlighted that minus 1,000?
Yeah.
If I type in 0.001, it gets rid of the minus. So beware of that. You do need a minus on your lower tolerance if you want it to be smaller than the nominal. So it looks like this part is no good in a lot of different ways. Doesn't actually mean it's no good yet. We have to do our manual verification first, but it's not looking pretty so far.
Not at all.
Not looking pretty at all. It's a 0 for 5. All right, so then we have balloon number 3, and that's 2 times 500 thousandths plus or minus 1. Again, we could hit size, standards, diameter, or we could just copy paste one of these and then modify the feature number to feature number 6, and then update our nominal. So this ends up being pretty repetitive, at least when you're initially programming it. But I'll tell you what, if you're trying to inspect 1,000 parts, this is much better. Hey, we got a good one. If you're trying to inspect 1,000 parts, doing this once and updating all these nominals and tolerances is much better than inspecting each one of those 1,000 parts times 7 holes individually. And that's why CMMs exist. That's why they're out in the field. All right, so we have balloons number 1, 2, and 3. Now we need to do balloon number 4. So does anybody have any ideas what we're going to use for balloon number 4? I think balloon number 4, we're going to compare the distance between this plane back here and whichever hole this is right here. And technically, because that says 2 times, this is actually referring to the location of this hole and the location of this hole. So we got to do it twice. That's what the 2 times on the print means. All right. So how do we do that? Well, this will also be under the size dropdown. The size dropdown is pretty much where you're going to go for all of your regular tolerances. For geometric tolerances, you'll be under form and location, but for any standard tolerances, rectangular tolerances, you'll be under size. So in this case, we'll go size, distance, and we actually have about 4 different ways that we could do this. Let's see, Cartesian, simple distance, caliper distance, and polar caliper distance would all work for this. Well, let's go with simple distance because it's the simplest one. Go figure. So I create the distance. It ends up added to the characteristics list. Now I'll double click on it. And it asks me, what do I want for feature 1 and feature 2? Well, we already mentioned this before. I said I want the plane at the back of the part, which is plane 4. And then I want the circle at the front, which is circle 2. So I'll click on the buttons. Now I can't see my features. You see how it says select existing features and I don't see my planes here? It's because we have a feature filter on. I need to turn on the plane type feature. So let's see, where are we here? Display all features. Well, I guess it's only going to show me the circle first. And then for feature 2, it won't let me grab the plane. Huh. Scratch that. I said there are about 4 different ways to do this. I guess there are 3 different ways to do this. We'll go size, distance, and we'll do a caliper distance instead of a simple distance. Now it allows me to select planes and circles. So I guess there's one limitation of simple distance. So I apologize for telling you the wrong thing there. So the feature that we want is plane 4. And the second feature that we want is circle 2. Now, the problem with doing a caliper distance is we have a couple of extra settings that we have to set. Because just like if you're using dial calipers, you could measure from the furthest extent of a hole, or from the center of a hole, or from the closest extent of a hole. So we just have to be careful about this. We're going to select center for our hole. That's subtle, but it's important. And then which direction do we want to measure this? Do we want to measure along the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis? The y-axis. So we'll turn on y down here. And according to our blueprint, we want 1 inch 500. So we're going to type 1 inch 500, and this one is going to be, technically that's those of you who have taken GD&T, which should be all of you. You probably noticed that this isn't really a rectangular tolerance. You know what kind of tolerance that is?
Basic.
That's a basic dimension. So that means it refers to some sort of geometric dimension or tolerance. But I'm going to use it loosely here and just pretend this rectangle is not around it. And that would make it a 3-place decimal, which would make it plus or minus 5. Okay, so We have plus or minus 5 there. We say OK. So we did kind of a lot of work on that first distance. So let's do another distance. What do you think we should do, Greg?
No, I see the grid.
What's it?
Can I see the grid?
We're just looking to do the other hole.
Oh,
This was a 2 times.
the plane 4 is circle.
Plane 4, is there an easier way of doing that? What do you think, Kevin?
Copy and paste.
Yeah, why don't we copy and paste it just like we did before? We'll copy it and paste it. And all we have to do is change it from circle 2, and it wants to be circle 1 now. And we'll say OK. And we just have to make sure we update that nominal value. OK, just one more. Just one more balloon here. We did balloon number 4. Let's go do balloon number 5. So balloon number 5 is going from some plane that we have on the right side of the part to this hole up here and this hole over here. We do have a 2 times. This is going to be 4-inch 375. And again, we'll pretend that that rectangle is not around it. We'll pretend it's not a basic dimension. So we'll go with a plus or minus 5 thousandths tolerance. Now here again, we could go with a simple, or I'm sorry, with a regular caliper distance. So we could just copy paste that, or we could select it from the size drop down, whatever your favorite is. I'm going to choose to copy it, and I'll paste it twice. I'll paste it once. And then I'll just come in and modify it. So I don't want to come from plane 4 anymore. I want to come from plane 5, so we can see that on our graphic readout over here. And I don't want to go to circle 2 anymore. I want to go to, geez, I guess it would be circle 4. And do I want to do the y-axis still? No, I don't want to do the y. I want to do the x. And you can kind of tell by the nominals, right? If I selected y for my nominal, it's giving me 1-inch 324. The dimension on the print was 4-inch 375, so that should be a red flag right there. So we'll select 4-inch 375. And we said this one was going to be a plus or minus 5 as well. And we'll say OK. And now I want to do the same thing for circle number 1 down here. So what do I do?
Copy and paste.
Copy paste again. We'll grab caliper distance 3. And we'll just change from circle 4 to circle 1 and OK. And we'll just have to re-update that nominal. It's actually kind of annoying that that nominal keeps resetting itself. It's something to look out for. What do we do next? I think our program's done. We don't know if it's any good or not, but I think it's done. So now we have to go verify that our dimension report is correct.